I'm a board member with Native Prairies Association of Texas, the chapter and the state. My name is Michelle Villafranca, and I am very happy to introduce Della Barbato, who is one of our employees. So she actually works for Native Prairies Association of Texas down in the Houston area, out of the Lawther Deer Park, Prairie. We have a house there, and Della has been instrumental in building up a really huge education program in the Houston area that we wish we could spread it all across the state. And so I was telling Della that we need to clone her. We need about 5 Dellas across the state because she's really a dynamo. And so she's going to talk tonight to our chapter about the program that she's developed and that she runs out of Deer Park. So I will turn this over to Della.
Thank you, Michelle. So as a former teacher and an educator, I have way too many slides because I love pictures. And so I really need to know what time this ends with questions so I can kind of gauge myself.
Okay, you and I are alike. So it's from 7 to 8, and then if we go over in the Q&A portion, then people can drop off if they need to, and we're recording this, so then we'll send out a link to the recording if anyone misses the end.
So my goal is to finish by 7:45. So that's my goal. Don't know if I'll get there, but we're going to try. And I also tend to go too fast. So, you know, if I'm going too fast, please, you know, break in and stop me or ask questions or whatever. This is very informal. Questions don't necessarily have to wait till the very end. I'm open. So, I know I'm preaching to the choir, but these slides were in here that you all know that we are a nonprofit dedicated to the conservation of Texas prairies. And we have acquired a couple more pieces of property. So this is very exciting. We now own 8 and have 17 easements, and we have just a little over 5,000 acres. So that little, can you guys see like my mouse here? Can you see this? This is where I am.
Yes, we can.
That's great. This is Galveston Bay, and that's Deer Park. It's about 8 miles from Galveston Bay, but we have prairies all over where you can see stars. So you probably all know that from Mexico all the way to Canada was originally grasslands, millions of acres. And so what this map shows is that here we are in the coastal prairie, and this is tall grass prairie, and here you are in Fort Worth, and that's also tall grass prairie. But you know, we've got savanna, short grass, and others. And so all the way up to Canada, before any humans arrived, it was prairie. And of course, now we all know that less than 1% of the Texas prairie remains. So if you're interested in transferring your prairie, and I don't think we have a size, you know, I don't think a prairie is too small, but make sure that you get it registered as a NPAT, Native Texas Prairie. So as I mentioned before, here's Deer Park, and there's Galveston Bay. So that's where Lawther Deer Park Prairie is, and I want to spend a little bit of time talking about Lawther Deer Park Prairie because it is such a gem. It was purchased in 2013 for nearly $4 million. I love the story that Mr. Lawther said that we could buy it, and then a couple of weeks later, some developers approached him and said, well, we'll give you $6 million. And he said, okay, you can have it for $4 million, but you got 6 weeks to raise that money. And amazingly enough, we did it. 90% of our donors have never stepped foot on Lawther Deer Park Prairie. So Shell Deer Park, who has been a supporter of Deer Park Prairie education, I asked them to come out with their drones, and they did. They came out and they took this picture. So this is a really good picture of Lawther Deer Park Prairie. This is just one side of it, but what's interesting to me is that you can actually see the different elevations with the different ecosystems and the different colors and the mottes of trees and such. Usually the mottes of trees are associated with a prairie pothole. So they get plenty of water that way. So Lawther Deer Park Prairie is a platinum prairie, which really we like to call it a remnant prairie, platinum prairie. There's lots of different names, but it was found using Google Earth. And I went and took this picture today from Google Earth. So this is current. So you can see we are surrounded on all sides by urban things. There are residences here and a cemetery here, so they probably don't mind too much that there's a prairie here. But you can see the differences in elevation from Google Earth, and that is how this prairie was found. You can see these are the darker areas. These circular spots are prairie potholes, which are only about 2 feet deeper than the rest. And then the Mima mounds, which you really can't see, but they're about 2 feet higher than, I guess we would call it sea level, whatever the base there is. So there's another picture, and you can see there's a bunch of different foliage here. So this might be a half a foot different than the foliage around it. So what I'm trying to get at is that native remnant prairies are not flat. They do have very slight differences in elevation, and this is what a tall grass prairie looks like. So on Deer Park Prairie, there are 407 different plant species. Mother Nature herself will put over 300 plant species just in 1 acre. 1 acre is about a football field. So Deer Park Prairie is 51 acres. So we have 470 plant species, and it's one of the most endangered ecosystems in Texas. There's a really nice picture of Gulf muhly grass. So one of the benefits of a remnant prairie is that they do have lots of rare species. So rare plant species are in danger of extinction because of so much development of the native prairie that was there. And so on Deer Park Prairie, we do have the snowy orchid, the downy lobelia, and the lady's tresses. Prairie dawn is another one. It's found closer to the coast. So biologists call it a remnant prairie because it is home to rare plant species and other fast disappearing species, not only of the birds, but of the insects as well. Well, Kitty, you're going to have to wait. She wants in. Okay, it also supports the biodiversity, the diversity of insects. We have such a huge, wonderful number of species of insects there on Deer Park Prairie because they have so much food and shelter. And you know, they do their thing and they create more. There's a great, these photos I need to credit. This is Chuck Duplant. He's one of our super volunteers, comes out to all of our work days and just is a fabulous photographer as well as educator. If I have any education on the weekends, he will come out and help out. So just lots. We have, because of the prairie potholes, we do have wetlands many months of the year, and it really should be dry right now, but we've had so much rain that we've got tons and tons and tons of dragonflies and other insect species that use the water as part of their life cycle. That's the word I wanted. Okay, there's katydid. Of course, lots of pollinators. Butterflies are just, you know, they're one pollinator. We do have lots of migrating monarchs. We have 4 different species of milkweed on our property in Deer Park. And of course, the native bees are the big time pollinators. And you can see these little guys have tons and tons of pollen on their bodies. And these photos are also from, most of these photos are Chuck Duplant. And I think this might be either Kirsty or myself who took this, but insects, obviously, when you build it, they will come. We have lots and lots of bird species on our property because there's so much food with the insects species. So the entire ecosystem is there on Deer Park Prairie. So to me, the reason I have my job and is because education is the key to conservation of prairies. If we don't educate the next generation, then we're doing this all for nothing. So that's really what my job to me is all about, is educating our youth. I do a lot of adult education as well, but to me, if you put that seed in their little mind early, then you are growing their minds to support conservation. So what do? I would say the number one thing that I do are student classroom programs. And I've got a Prairie Learning Trunk where I that helps out with that, and a beautiful PowerPoint. We also do student field trips. I support teachers and students in building pocket prairies on their campus. I've got a summer camp. We did a prairie art contest. Teacher workshops are, I would say, the number 2 important thing that I do, because the more teachers you train to be prairie educated, it's exponential when they reach their students. Lots of adult programs. Pre-COVID, we had lots of exhibiting at events, and because of the pandemic, we now have lots of virtual programs, which I'm going to get to all of this in the next 40 minutes. Yes. Okay. So the topics that I teach, I'm not going to go into this at all because the education is really what this is all about. But the topics at all of those different programs that I do, history of the prairie, benefits of a prairie and a pocket prairie, the ecology, the water quality, and how to build a pocket prairie. So those are the most of the. So along with my prairie education trunk, this is a skunk skin. I can't remember the word I want. Sometimes I include a little art if the students are young enough, but this prairie banner is a 25-foot long, and it shows the roots that are 15 feet and then the shoots that are 6 feet, and why and how the prairie roots are so important in a prairie and a pocket prairie. Flood mitigation being number 1 for us humans. Soil stabilization, carbon sequestration. I mean, there's just so many benefits of a prairie. So the Prairie Learning Trunk, mentioned the prairie, the skunk pelt. That's the word I wanted, the skunk pelt. I also order these skulls and jawbones from an outfit called Bone Clone. They are not real. They are plastic, but it really shows, you know, what the skull of a coyote looks like and what the skull of a bobcat looks like. So the Prairie Trunk is a really valuable learning tool. In addition to going to classrooms, I also go to Girl Scouts. This was an event that I did. It helps to have a best friend with 3 girls that are in Girl Scouts, because she will call you and ask you to do these things because she created her own badge. So, but then this is another one, a Girl Scout troop that I did out here in Fort Bend County. So I talked about exhibiting at events. This is an 8th grade career day, and these are the girls, one of my best friends' children. And so this is at her school, but it was great. This was exhibiting days are just a really long day because it's just nonstop talking, but it's really worth it because you reach so many different people. And this is one of the best ways that I can teach the prairie is on the prairie. So I have facilitated field trips at Deer Park Prairie, but I have also facilitated field trips at various prairies that are much closer to the school campus. So this is a school called Rice School, and this is when I took them out to the MD Anderson Prairie. So this is MD Anderson back here. And this is a 1.7 acre prairie. And what they're doing is they are netting insects on the prairie part, but there's also over here some St. Augustine that you can't see. And of course, we have them a couple of nets over here netting the lack of insects, and then they compare. So they can really see how many different types of insects and the different biodiversity that lives on the prairie with the native grasses and wildflowers. And this is out at Deer Park Prairie. This is Deer Park High School came out, and this is one of my super volunteers, Shannon Westphere, and she's helping me out this day. And so when they do the insect netting out on Deer Park Prairie, and I will say that anytime I have a group of people out to Deer Park Prairie, whether it's a teacher workshop or an adult program or whatever, we always get on the prairie with these nets because the insects just really speak for themselves. And even if the students think that, you know, insects disgust them, they are delighted when they can look at a insect that is magnified and where they can look that close at it and they can really see the head and the thorax and the abdomen and the little hairs and the colors. And when they get that close, all of a sudden the disgustingness of it goes away. So it's really one of the best tools that you have is an insect sweep. And then we put things in jars, and then we can ID it, and using iNaturalist or some educated person that's in there, like a Chuck DuPlant, or I can identify some, but not all. But so the iNaturalist really comes in handy. And here's, it's not just insect netting. We also do prairie tours. This tour started out, it was raining. So you can see a little, but you know, we do still, you know, get a little wet. And then we also created some seed balls that day. So tours and seed balls and other activities out on the prairie. So this is a very happy group of kids that have just finished their day on the prairie. Oh, another thing that we have done is one of our volunteers did, you know, what is, if you were a bird, what bird would you be with your wingspan? And so they're measuring from fingertip to fingertip to see what bird they would be. So that's another activity. So when I teach the teachers how important it is to build pocket prairies on their campus, I actually go to the school and we'll do a separate presentation to the students on you know, how to build a pocket prairie and what you do, because it allows science to happen right there on the prairie. Tiger Prairie is one of my the schools that I have been involved with, not from the very beginning. Katy Prairie Conservancy was there from the very beginning, but they have a 1 acre large prairie, and so that's one of the largest pocket prairies, but they can be very small. Pre-pandemic, I was working with 5 different schools. I've gotten a lot of interest. The interest is coming back now. So that's exciting. I also do a summer camp. I'm not quite sure. Those stars must be left over from a previous slide, or we can just pretend they're little stars there in the sky. But this is a summer camp. This past a couple of weeks ago, I gave the summer camp to 8 students and a few chaperones. And so there we are, insect netting, and you can see our boardwalk under construction there. It kind of stops right there. But this is our boardwalk. And so these students that were, you know, came in shorts, even though they were not supposed to, have a way to get out into the prairie because of that boardwalk. We had a prairie art contest that was associated with our North American Prairie Conference back in 2018. This is another way I can engage the students. And this was one of the first place winners there. You can see the artist really has a grasp on, you know, encroaching development here and the real live insects. And then of course the grazing buffalo, that's kind of a ghost that's no longer there. I think Pat McCord bought that one. Anyway, this is another winner there. She did a very good job of the meadowlark. And there's the winner's reception. And that's only one school. There are more winners in the audience. So So teaching teachers is, again, one of the most important things that I do. Can't see my numbers here because this thing is here, but I think I've taught about over 450 teachers with a potential reach, counting their students that they teach, of over 40,000. So that's really exciting. That, you know, since I've been here, I got this job in April of 2017, 18, 19, 20, 21. Right. So anyway, in that time period, that's how many teachers that I have trained. This was just last Tuesday. So you can see 38 teachers in administration. They are all dutifully wearing their masks, or most of them anyway. So it's really nice when I can go to the school and train, because then you have all of these, none of these teachers have a choice. They all have to be there. So I'm doing one more of those this year. So Teacher Prairie workshops are going statewide. This is really exciting. We are going to have a statewide teacher workshop, and Fort Worth is included. So if you are interested, or please send all of your teachers to Joanne Collins, who is your facilitator there in Fort Worth. And so we are going to have 7 different chapters doing 7 different field days. And those are going to be in Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin, San Antonio, Northeast Texas, Fayette, and Houston. And we're going to, mostly, or try to get on our properties to do the field component. I'm going to train the trainers, and then the facilitators are going to teach the teachers. They're going to have their field component, and then we're all going to come back together in one huge Zoom. So this is going to be a hybrid event, and I'm really excited about this. So this is coming in October, so stay tuned. And if you know any teachers, please send them to Joanne. Another way that I educate, or I should say, actually, the teachers educate themselves with this tool. I created a Facebook group called Pocket Prairie Teachers. You do not have to be a teacher to join this group, so all of you can join. It is now over 400 members strong, and what this is a place to exchange native plants, seeds, and ideas and lessons. And if you go on there, it's just amazing how I monitor it, but I really don't. They really take it over themselves. And, you know, someone will take a picture of an insect and say, hey, what is this? I don't recognize this. Or someone will take a picture of a plant and say, hey, do I want to get rid of this? This is taking over my yard. What do I do with it? They talk about lessons that work, what lessons that don't work, the pocket prairies that are on their campus. How do I start one? How do you get rid of your grass? And so this is really an exchange of ideas between teachers who have pocket prairies and teachers that want pocket prairies. And this is a really good tool. I also do adult education. We have workshops. We have our monthly work days, which happen the 4th Saturday of every month down here at Deer Park Prairie. Then I'm sure you guys have your work days. I exhibit at many different events around the Houston metro area. I've also given event presentations to Deer Park Chamber of Commerce and the Rotary Club there. And then there's also Senior Living Community, which you're about to see pictures of. There they are. And so this was before the boardwalk, so I couldn't have too many out there, but these are some of the senior citizens that came from, there's a living community out in Deer Park. And this is when I went to them. So this is the out at their location. And that gentleman was just so excited that he had those pelts in his room. He made me put one on my head. So this is the garden club that I am involved with. This is interesting. This is Angela Roth, and she's one of my Pocket Prairie teachers, but she also happens to be in the Bouquets. And then one of our former board members for Houston Native Prairies Association of Texas, Hazel Potvin, is also a big person in this group. So I went and gave a presentation to the Bouquets Garden Club, and there's that poster that I was talking about, and it's good, but you can see here, this is St. Augustine right here. So you're comparing, 6-inch roots to 15-foot roots. So this is a really good tool. So I mentioned I did pollinator workshops, Texas Master Naturalist workshops, wildflower days happen pre-pandemic twice a year in the spring and in the fall. This is at Earth Day, again, pre-pandemic. This is a really busy day too. I hope to, really try to get somebody else out there to help me. Sometimes Bob or Wally comes out there. And this is Shell Energy Day. And this is one of our board members. This is president. He's on the president of the Houston Club or chapter. That's Wally Ward. And he's also on the executive member. This was another really busy day. We had over 400 people stop by our booth that day. Adults and kids. This is an event at Deer Park High School. Pre-pandemic, they made all of their teachers, especially the new ones, go to this to see the vendors. And so that's actually how I met one of my teachers who came out to the Deer Park Prairie to bring her students on a field trip. So because of the pandemic, we have now gone virtual. I can move this thing. Look at that. Okay, so far, our virtual programs, we have 7 educational videos, and you might say, but there's only 6 when I go to the website. That's because one of them is so close to being done. But if you go to texasprairie.org, go all the way over here to education, and then go down to Deer Park Prairie Education, click on that, and you will have access to all 7 videos. Okay, there we go. So the Prairie educational videos that have been done so far, that should say a closer look at insects. This is what happens when you don't proof before you push enter. Fall wildflowers and grasses, spring wildflowers and grasses, and my executive director Kirsty Harms helped out with some of these. Also, pressing wildflowers is really good, especially for the young ones, because actually, ages 5 through 95 can do this activity, and it's a lot of fun, and you get a piece of art when you're done with it. Harvesting wildflower seed is the newest one, and that will be online within the week. The Wonder of Insects, and then the City Nature Challenge, we created a video about that, and I'm going to talk about that here in a little bit. Another virtual program that I did was called Virtually Wild Texas. And this is actually a program of the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department, where they go to different areas or different ecosystems around the Houston metro area. So they've done forests, they've done wetlands, and they asked to come out to Deer Park Prairie. This was actually a program that existed before the pandemic. This is a program that is several years old. But this is the first time they came out to Deer Park Prairie, and we did 4 different filmings, and it was broadcast live back to their classrooms, not only classrooms, but hospital rooms, and just anyone who wants to participate in this can. It's part of the Region 4 group. So they came out, like I said, 4 times. So we did 4 live virtual programs, and there I am getting filmed live. This is actually one of the directors of Texas Parks and Wildlife here. She came out there that day, and I had, thank goodness for that boardwalk. It really, really helped out. I had my stuff from the Prairie trunk in my water bottle. And so they just filmed me talking about the Prairie, and we actually went out into the Prairie and pointed out some different ecology, and we talked about flower parts, and then I did some insect netting and was able to capture some things that we could show them with the insect sweep. So in all 4 of those classrooms, we hit over 211 students. So that was really a valuable tool there. So to date, I have done 45 different student programs and have reached directly over 1,600 students. So that's really exciting number there. This is actually the water quality experiment that program I was talking about. This is the EnviroScape that talks about how when pollution gets on the ground, the rain will wash it into Galveston Bay, unless you have a prairie that will stop it, and then the prairie itself will absorb those toxic fertilizers and pesticides and dog poop and everything else that it usually gets washed into the bay. So this is an exciting program that is coming up in September. Go ahead and mark your calendars or save the date. This was originally going to be an in-person live event, but because of this new guy called Delta that is going all over the United States right now, it is going to be a virtual event, so you can participate. So save the date. It's September 25th. You might be able to get a hat at this event. This is one of the newest things that we have is our new merchandise that we have is these brand new baseball caps for Native Prairies Association of Texas. The event will raise funds for Prairie education, and I can now say statewide. So with our live auction and raffle, you can possibly get a Kubota RTV, weekend Prairie getaways, possibly you can get a custom-made acoustic guitar, large Prairie prints, and then get NPAT merchandise. So if you want for information, just go to the Native Prairies website. I would say hold off for a week or so because we just switched over to the virtual format, and so we need to update all of our websites. So I talked about the City Nature Challenge. This is a virtual event that happens worldwide. So it's really exciting. If you have never heard of iNaturalist, it is an app that you download on your phone. You take a picture of any plant or insect or animal, and it will use the location of your phone and mark it as being there in that place at that time. City Nature Challenge is something that iNaturalist, I guess, put together, but it's a contest to see how many participants and species are documented in a 4-day period. And it's a contest to see how many observers win, whatever. And so get this out of here. So in 2021, so the categories by size, and here's Dallas Fort Worth, and here's Houston Galveston. They have about the same amount of land area. So there has been a healthy competition between these two for the past 3 or 4 years, and we keep switching on who wins out on what. So I will give you the results for 2021. Isn't that funny? Every time there we go. So the Houston Galveston team had 3,707 different species. That's a huge number of species for the Houston metro area. And that was a new regional record. So number 3 in the world for species observed. Look at this though, number 1 in the USA for number of, that was species observed, in the USA. And then number 1 in the Texas ranking for species observed and observers. So 33,000 observations, and these are the people who identify after they're already on INAT. So this is kind of what's funny is that in 2021, Dallas Fort Worth won on number of observations, but number of species, Houston team won, and the number of observers, Houston team won. And so, like I said, it's always a rivalry between Dallas Fort Worth and Houston Galveston on who's going to get, number one on these different things. So that's it. Keeping Texas Prairie. There is my, it was only 7:36. There is my email address. So if you would like to email me for any questions, and I believe that's it.
Thanks, Della. I see that there are quite a few comments and questions in the chat. let's see. I think Joanne put some information about joining NPAT in general and helping out. And then Becky Bertoni asked, what are the 4 milkweeds there at Deer Park?
Green. Is Kirsty on here? I can't see her.
Yeah, I'd have to look at the plant list. Let me see if I
Yeah.
can.
I know it's the green milkweed. There's you know, I can't even pretend to know, but Kirsty's gonna look that up. Can we go to the next question?
Yeah, so while she's looking that up, let me go back to chat and see what our other questions were. Joanne was saying if you know of a teacher who might want to join, to email the Fort Worth NPAT, fwnpat@gmail.com. Kim Conroe has volunteered to help with the teacher training, so that's excellent.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I was just asking if you have anything official, like have it posted on the website or more details about the registration for the teachers workshop, if you could share that, and then we can put it in our newsletter and help promote it as well.
So we're gonna get there. Email me and I'll put you on the list. And as soon as we have a flyer, I will be sharing that.
Okay, that sounds good. And then Becky had asked details on the boardwalk. What is under it? How high is it?
Details on the, I'm sorry, the what?
On the boardwalk, like how high is it?
Yeah, no,
under it?
sure.
How long?
Sure. So I will first say that the boardwalk was a teaching tool that we really had wanted for a very long time. And one of our super volunteers, Charlie Lundquist, passed away. And his sister reached out to me and said he was such a huge supporter of Deer Park Prairie. He helped build the birding platform that we have out on the prairie, and you know, what could we do to memorialize him? And I suggested the boardwalk, and so we raised I think a little bit over $22,000. And so our plan is to have that boardwalk be 1,000 feet. Right now it's going into the prairie, and it's going it will go into the wetlands as well, so that not only folks who are disabled, but also, you know, students who just don't really want to walk out into the tall grass, and teachers. I mean, it's just a fabulous tool, and that will go out. So it's going out, but we hope to also build it around the perimeter. But right now it's going straight out. I believe it's going to go 1,000 feet, and then it's going to split. We're going to have a little platform where I can stop and the students can gather, and maybe we can look at insects and such there, and then it's going to go on from there. So so right now we're looking at 1,000 feet, you know, and as we raise more funds, then it will, you know, maybe it will never be done. So how high is it? Yeah, I'm going to say, wow, gosh, a foot or two off the ground. So Kirsty put the plant list there. So
Yes, it's about a foot off the ground, and it's sitting on cinder blocks because part of the conservation easement requirements with the prairie is that there are no permanent structures on the prairie. So both the observation deck and the boardwalk, they could actually be moved. They're not set into the ground. They're actually sitting on top of the ground. And there are actually 5 species of milkweed. I just downloaded the plant list. Let's see, I can read them off. Where is it? There is. So Jason Singhurst did the plant list, and you can download it from the Deer Park website. There's longleaf milkweed, pineland milkweed, world milkweed, green comet, and green. So the pineland milkweed is probably the oddest one that we have there. So there's actually 5 species. The others you
Thank
can
you.
find on Coastal Prairies as well.
Thank you so much, Kirsty, for looking that up for me.
Yeah, I think three of the milkweeds you can find up here in North Texas, but the pine one and the I forget the other one that you called out are
The
definitely
world
not up here.
is the world milkweed. That's one
No, the
that,
world, world
is that-
comet and green are up here.
okay, then it's the longleaf,
Yeah,
which
I'm
is
not
kind of
familiar with
similar to the
longleaf.
world. It's got narrow leaves.
Yeah, is it linearis? We may have one. I don't know. I'd have to look at the Latin name, but definitely there's, I think, more diversity of milkweeds in the coastal prairie.
Yeah, it's longifolia.
I wish Bill Freiheit was on this call, on this Zoom, and he could say for sure of it. I think that one may not be up here.
Mm-hmm.
I know that at Deer Park, we've got the green in the world, I think seem to be the most prevalent that I've seen. So I have a little bit of time left. I would be happy to go into some of the education that I do. It's up to you, Michelle.
Yeah, I think we have about 15 minutes, so you can share that with us.
Okay, why not? So let me share the screen again. I want this.
Della, before you get started, why don't you tell people how they can donate just specifically to the education program? I think we can do that through our website and just putting it in the notes, correct?
If you go to texasprairie.org, all right, Kirsty, you're going to have to help me. How did they get to the donate?
I'll put the link in the chat. There is just a donate for education. It's a choice. You can just donate to education, and that goes right towards our education program. I'll put the link in the chat.
Perfect.
So I believe that the history of wherever you are, the pedagogy of wherever you are is really very important. And the history of the coastal prairie system is so rich. It's really exciting to teach it, and the history teachers love it. So what I don't have here is I want to talk about the Battle of San Jacinto, because that is the battle that won Texas its independence from Mexico, and it was fought not too far from Deer Park Prairie. So it was coastal prairie, which is a tall grass prairie. And because of that, the Mexican army was outnumbered the Texians 4-1, but we were able to win this battle in 4 minutes, and 12 minutes, because we had the element of surprise. And the reason we had the element of surprise is because of our tall grass prairie. So not only were the Texians able to crouch down and hide in the tall grass prairie, but they also dragged their cannons through that tall grass prairie. And so without the tall grass prairie, we would be part of Mexico. So that's a really part of part of our history there. I think I might get there, but the things that we had red wolves up as close as 40 years ago, and they are now extinct. However, they have found some genetics of the pure red wolf on Galveston Island, and they are not only breeding with themselves, they're also breeding with the coyotes, as they are nationwide. So we're getting more red wolf blood or genetics into our cities because of that. So there it is. So there is the Battle of San Jacinto. This artist depiction looks like they're fighting on a golf course. Obviously, that is not the case. Because of the tall grass prairie, we won this battle. And there you can see a reenactment of the Battle of San Jacinto and the tall grasses that they were able to use for their element of surprise. And so another very important part of our history is because of the the tall grass, because of the nutrition that was available and the wildflowers and the grasses, the longhorn cattle, which is a very successful business and has been in this area for 100 years. Because of that, they were able to, if you have a lot of food, you have a lot of offspring. And so the cowboys really came about because of the native prairies and the nutritious grasses. And when the cowboys, when they put their longhorns out onto pasture, then they would get kind of bored. And so what they would do is develop games, and those games turned into the livestock show and rodeo. So, who can stay on this bull the longest, who can stay on this horse the longest, who can cook the meat the best, and who can play their guitar the best. And so that is a tradition that is still alive today, that is alive because of the prairies. And if you look at our mascots in the Texas area, they are all directly related to the prairies as well. So that's kind of exciting. And of course, we had Native Americans on this land, we know up to 10,000 years ago. And so that they are also a part of our history, and lots of arrowheads are still found today. And I mentioned before that 1 acre of prairie, native prairie, can have over 300 different species. And that is a living museum. So much of it has been covered over with, homes and farms and strip malls, that when you do find a piece of remnant prairie, you find some genetics that are just not found hardly anywhere else. So I showed that slide, and on that slide, seed collecting is a very important and educational tool. We have seed collecting pre-pandemic out every once a month. And there's Lan, and she heads our seed collecting and shows us how to do it. The video that I made, I hope will help out a lot too. And that, as I mentioned, is in its final stages. So the benefits of a prairie, it's more economical, using less fertilizer. And then of course, they provide seeds for the seeds that are collected at Deer Park Prairie are used, on at least 5 to 10 different other prairies around the Houston metro area. So those genetics are being spread, which is exciting. And then, mitigation of flooding. I'm not sure about Fort Worth, but we are not called the Bayou City for nothing. All of these are natural bayous that exist around. And here's Galveston Bay, the Houston metro area. So when it rains and these swell, there's a lot of flooding that happens. This is one of the schools. This is the area that flooded after Harvey. But I will say that the homes that are around Deer Park Prairie, not one of them flooded. So the value of those homes have increased. Not only do the roots absorb the water, I think I've got that here. Yeah. Not only do the roots absorb the water, and these are a bunch of different, this is a great tool to use also, because echinacea is on here. There's your St. Augustine right there, that tiny little thing. There's your echinacea, switchgrass is on here. All these different grasses. It really is like a rainforest upside down. And not only can these roots absorb 14 times more water than, non-native lawn, but they create channels in the soil so that the water has a place to go. Right here, the water is not absorbed. We have gumbo here, which is extremely clay-ish. So this is all of these roots just absorb a lot more water, mitigating those floods. And so I mentioned the carbon sequestration can store up to 50 tons more carbon per acre, can store up to 250 gallons of rainwater per acre. And then those roots will absorb the toxins and bacteria that are in the water, and And then before it goes to the water table, then it will increase the water quality. And some of these, of course, we have carnivorous plants. I love the variety and diversity that we have out at Deer Park Prairie. So there's your world milkweed. I'm just going to go through these. They're just, we have so much lance leaf blanket flower. It's one of the main gaillardias that we have out at Deer Park Prairie for some odd reason. I don't know why we don't have too much more of the firewheel or the other species. And when you, like I said, when you build it, they will come. If you build it, they will come. If you put a pocket prairie on your campus, you will, or your home, you will get more of the insects and the bees, and then the birds. Talked about the iNaturalist. This is a really old slide. Look at that, 183 memberships strong. So these are the different pocket prairies that are in the Houston metro area. Of course, Katy Prairie Conservancy has 20,000 acres. But then, there are some as small as, a 4x4 space in somebody's yard. And signage is extremely important when you build a pocket prairie. Some research students come out every year and do research on the prairie. That's kind of exciting. And then our work days. And then there's just more of our ecology. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. And if there are no other questions, anybody have comments or anything to add?
I think just our thanks. That was a wonderful, I didn't expect you to cover as much ground as you did. We had time left over at the end to go back and fill in a few gaps. So thank you so much for both the completeness and also just the value of what you had to share with us. It's inspiring to all of us that we can help in the teaching area to actually save prairies.
You're welcome. It was my pleasure.
Yeah, thank you, Della. That, to me, you're really highlighting the need for education, in other parts of the state. So I'm really glad that y'all are working on the virtual statewide, basically train the teacher workshop. That's really exciting. And I think that's going to help out other parts of the state to at least start building more of a following here of future generations.
Yeah, it's going to be a really fabulous event. I hope to get 100 teachers involved statewide. That's my goal.
That's a very good goal. All right. Well, thank you. And we're done before dark. So maybe y'all can run out and hug a prairie before it gets dark if you're close to a prairie. We appreciate it, Della.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Michelle. Thanks, Kate. Y'all have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Della. It was awesome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Della. It was great.
You're welcome, Kenny. Thank you, Becky.
Della, while I didn't get to the meeting, to the board meeting. I did read your report and emailed you, but where do I need to be standing on trying to get teachers involved? We're doing our first work, is it October? We're going to do the training. I need to get busy trying to get some teachers on the list.
And that's something we're going to cover at next week's meeting. So yeah, I mean, you didn't miss anything on the education committee is meeting on the 17th.
Okay, cool. So are we meeting on Wednesday?
It's a Tuesday.